We're live, everybody. Welcome in. It is Tuesday, June 20th. I'm so happy to have you guys here with us today. Have y'all. My God, I'm from Texas, Emmet. I've been living here for almost 3 years, and I still can't say y'all every time. What is wrong with me? I'm joined with Emmet Peppers. He's the founder of Good Soil Investment Firm. He's been on YouTube for a little while. Those that follow the Tesla stock and the Tesla story should be quite familiar with Emmet, but if you're not, do make sure you go check out his channel, Good Soil, on YouTube, and then you can also find him on Twitter as well. We'll make sure the mods post those links in the comment section below. And just a heads up, producer wife has a day off today. She's quite busy doing her own thing, so it's just going to be Emmet and I, and hopefully I don't completely ruin the experience. So Emmet, how you doing, man? Long time no see. How you been, brother?
I'm doing well, Farzad. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible to see your growth in this initiative you took. What was it, like almost 2 years ago when you started this YouTube channel
Yeah,
now? Something
year and a
like
half
that.
or
Yeah,
something.
you've
Yeah.
come a long way and fast. It's really nice to see your success, and you've had the qualifications that not many other YouTubers that you worked at Tesla. Not only have you been invested for around 10 years, but you also worked at Tesla, so you're very familiar with the culture, and you live close to the headquarters, and you have this YouTube, and you just have it's really incredible to see the growth you've had, and I applaud you. I think the more people we have like you out there, the more spreading content and about Tesla, the better for the community and just for the world, really.
Thank you, man. That's super kind of you to say. Thank you. I mean, likewise for you. You've been following the story for so long. Back from Tesla Motors Clubs days, and the incredible value that you bring to the community, to the investing community, not just for Tesla, but broadly. So I really
Yeah.
appreciate those kind words, and right back at you for sure. But I really do want to highlight just how terrible Matt is. He quit Good Soil, and he's
Yeah.
terrible. So tell me, how happy are you that now that liability is gone from your company? Please tell us exactly how you feel and how much you hate Matt, please.
No, in all honesty, I really miss him. I think he was a great asset to bounce ideas off of or just get his input on things. He really helped with a lot of I mean, we had their Good Soil YouTube channel, which I'm still continuing with some interviews, but I'm putting it all on Twitter now pretty much. And I don't know if I have I'm not very technical with technology. So even editing YouTube videos to add a disclaimer at the beginning is like trivial. It's difficult for me. I'm just, I learned how to use my Tesla products, but that's about as far advanced as I get. Um, so, Matt, he's missed greatly, not just on the media part, but also we did a weekly live stream that was great, but also with the fund that we manage kind of in the background. There's a lot of help he did there, but I'm managing that, no problem. And yeah, I still touch base with him from time to time. I wish him nothing but the best with Bradford Ferguson and that. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate being part of the witnessing Tesla's crazy growth these last 13 years, in the last 5 years especially, or 3 or 4 or 5 years especially,
It's
with the
wild.
media and the YouTube channels from Steve, Mark, Ryan, Rob Maurer, now like you're like the up and coming YouTube channel content creator for Tesla. You're like the if I could buy, I always tell people, if I could buy call options in something like you, I would buy call options in your channel,
Oh,
because I think it would be worth a lot later. But there's going to be more people that come about too. I mean, there's so many YouTube channels around Tesla, I can't even keep up with it all. So it's kind of crazy,
yeah,
but it's great. And I played a small role with Dave Lee. Dave Lee's huge and he does great things, but I was like,
he
I
does.
played a small role, if people don't know, with him bringing my story on board about successfully investing in Tesla over many years. And I've known Dave Lee for 10 plus years as well, investing from the Tesla Motor Club's forums days. And, I guess me bringing my adventure with options trading, especially the real-time options trading thing I did with S&P 500 trade, I think that gathered a lot of attention into Tesla. It kind of accelerated a lot of investors' attention into Tesla, the story of Tesla.
Yeah.
And I think I played a little role in helping that, but that was my contribution. I don't really have much to contribute anymore. There's people that are way more knowledgeable. I'm more
I
of a
wouldn't say
generalist
that.
on all things. I'm a generalist on like a lot of things with Tesla, but I'm not a specialist in any one thing Tesla related, I would say. So that's if I have any skill, it's just trying to apply all the generalist stuff from all the aspects of Tesla into making a big picture prediction or point of view. Yeah.
I think you do more than that. I mean, I really enjoy how how unbiased and even keel your conversations are on your channel. I think your interviews are super underrated because you bring in these super knowledgeable people that very few people have heard of, and then you have very deep conversations about certain topics. And I think that's underrated. It's just you and your and the way you've built your channel and the people you've worked with, to me, is like a gold standard amongst a few that I can go be like, okay, Emmet's not, he's very transparent about what he's invested in, but he's always going to view everything super even keel and try to understand both sides. And like the advertising conversation was a perfect one because you were one of the few voices, like I was on the camp of, let Tesla not advertise. It kind of adds to, I thought, the prestige of the company, and it's, the fact that they can sell this many cars without having to advertise, it seemed like a very strong thing. And then of course Tesla agreeing to advertise, and then you were like, yeah, I've been seeing, you didn't say this outwardly, but you had been calling for Tesla to advertise. So I think I wouldn't underrate your capabilities, man. I think you do a lot more than you think. Seriously.
Yeah, thanks. I just try to
Yeah.
bring different points of view. I try to look at things from many different perspectives, and I feel like if there's a perspective missing, I want to push that. If I think it's valid, I want to push that
Yeah.
perspective so people consider it as well. So
Yeah. And that's how
you know,
you get to the bottom of stuff, right? I mean,
yeah,
we've seen it on Twitter every single day. My God, it's like
yeah,
tribalism to hardcore. And, maybe later in the interview, we'll touch some of that stuff because it's just been fascinating to follow. But the first thing I want to hit is really what broke this morning. And let me go ahead and
Mhm.
share my screen. So
Oh, by the
another
way,
one
Tesla's
bites.
up like
Yeah.
$10 today, right? It's a nice day to do this interview
Yeah.
with Tesla up to 270. Man,
Hopefully we don't ruin it.
no, yeah,
You know how sometimes I'll go live and then the stock like takes a nosedive. I'm like, yep, that
yeah.
was my fault.
This
So
is a
let me
good
go
day
ahead
when
and
the Nasdaq's down and the Tesla's up. That's a really good day.
yeah,
Yeah.
big time. So the Dow, so S&P is down about 0.4%. Dow is down about 0.6%. Nasdaq's down about 0.2, and then Tesla is up 3.73% on the day. Now,
Mhm.
so one of the pieces of news that broke this morning was that Rivian, they made an announcement. Let me go ahead and share that screen. Again, I don't have producer wife today, so you can see how sloppy I am. My God.
Oh, that's
How
okay.
dare she leave me on my own? Rivian, today we signed an agreement with Tesla to adopt the North American charging standard. This opens charging for Rivian vehicles on Tesla's supercharger network across the United States and Canada. Access starts as soon as spring 2024, and I'm assuming this is a very similar setup to what they have with Ford and GM with the adapters, and then Rivian should come out with a NACS plug on their car starting in 2025 or later. So your reaction on these news, what's going through your mind?
No, I think it's expected ever since the Ford announcement and then GM right after that. It just seemed all the other dominoes are going to fall now too, and have some kind of alliance with the Tesla supercharger network. If you don't, you're at a big disadvantage. And in Rivian's case, I think that really helps bolster. I was a big bear on the valuation. I still am a bear on the valuation of Rivian, but I thought that they had a very high chance of going bankrupt or being bought for pennies on the dollar. I still think they have a very high chance, but I don't think it's as high now. So I still think in the long run, Rivian's valuation is ridiculous and it's going to go down dramatically, and they're not going to be able to raise capital at a favorable price. They're burning capital like crazy. Great product, right? But it's like the story that, all the Tesla bulls were telling us about Tesla. Great product, but the valuation is crazy and they're never going to be profitable. But the story actually seems to be true for Lucid and Rivian, although Lucid's product I've heard controversial takes on. So I don't
Mm.
know, maybe if their chance of going bankrupt or being bought for pennies on the dollar by Amazon was 75% chance in my mind before, maybe it's like 65% chance now. So it's a step in the right
Mm.
direction is what I'm saying. For them to have this supercharger network they'll be able to rely on that's not their own, they have to try to build out. They still have to build out like a global or North American service network instead of having these like Rangers, like a team. Like, you ever see their picture of like their service team? It's like 30
Yeah, yeah,
people and then with
yeah.
backpacks, and they're ready to like fly at a moment's notice on like a private helicopter to some Rivian location or something.
I love
They
it.
need to like do so much just to be able to service their cars nationally. It's just they're so far away still. Maybe they can make a deal with Tesla's service network and like have Tesla service is like centers service Rivians too or something. That would be huge for them if they want to survive. But they have a long way to go. But it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah, I view it very similarly. I do think Rivian, if I'm going to think about their long-term prospects, it does seem like, so when I talk to people that are, and I've been doing this a lot lately, and I put up a video yesterday. I did a drive along with my neighbor and ex-neighbor. They moved a little bit farther away, but really good friend of mine when we moved to Texas. He's born and bred Texan, worked in the oil field for a decade, has a Ford F-250. He loves his diesel truck. So, but he's not, anything he knows about EVs is through me. And
Mm-hmm.
the one thing that a trend that I've noticed here in Texas at least is that people know what a Rivian is, just like a Tesla. Like
Mm-hmm.
the name is it's out there in the ether, and when people talk about it casually, they usually have nice things to say about it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that truck looks sick, that SUV looks sick. And I've seen it in person. I haven't driven one yet, but it looks like the product is a good product. It's a good
Yeah.
product, and if you compare their cash balance or their the balance sheet to say a Lucid, Rivian appears to be light years ahead of where a Lucid is today, and they have the backing of an Amazon. And I feel like with a decision like today with the supercharger network, I'm wondering if that, like in my head, from a chance of survival in the long-term percentage, it seems like they have the right decision making in place to really look out for the customer, and they have the backing to make the business work. And now the valuation is a different question, right? Like, is it a $10 billion company? Is it a $5 billion company? Is it a $500 billion company? I don't know what that is, but it seems like they are, I guess, positioning themselves to be around long term. Do you think that's the case with that specific name, or?
Yeah, they're trying. They're making the moves on paper, at least. It's just, can they manufacture them on a mass scale efficiently? That's the multi-billion-dollar
Hard part.
question for them.
Yeah.
Can they mass produce them profitably? And they're not. And it's a great product, but that doesn't mean they can ever profitably produce them and sell them at $100,000 a piece, even.
Yeah.
So to get there, you need CEOs sleeping on floors and stuff. I don't think RJ is going to be doing that type of work ethic. And but maybe they can hire enough ex-Tesla people that have done it, that can just basically copy what Tesla has done with the production line more easily, and see flaws in things and fix things quickly, because Tesla's already innovated that. So maybe they can get enough ex-Tesla, production people to kind of just mimic as much as they can to be somewhat profitable. That's their hope. That's the hope. But I don't think it comes from the top at Rivian. They need to hire people from the outs, people, ex-Tesla people, I think, or maybe Chinese battery EV makers, that have the know-how to make EVs profitably in China, can help Rivian build them profitably. But I don't think any US producer of EVs is going to be profitable doing it unless they have enough ex-Tesla people working there.
That's a fair comment. Real quick, I want to highlight this awful comment from Matt Smith. Matt, Farza would be nothing without me. Keep telling yourself that, buddy. Keep telling yourself that. All right. Freaking Matt. By the way, for those that are not aware, because I sometimes do get DMs that people are like, "Why are you so mean to Matt?" This is all in good fun. We happen to really forge a really great friendship. And I don't know why, because he's a terrible person. So I guess I just feel bad for him. So
how do we know that's the real Matt Smith, though? There's probably a million people named Matt Smith.
You know
how do we
what?
know that's the one
You're
we're all
right.
talking? There's not even a profile picture on that one. It's not like, we have the most let's tease each other. I have the most unique name, and he's got the most common name. How do we know that's the Matt Smith we know? I know
that's
a bunch
true.
of Matt Smith.
Which really talks about how insignificant he is as a person. Anybody can replicate Matt, Anyway,
He's just gonna blend in, He just blends in.
But I think that that's an interesting comment you made, and so what the road to profitability and having positive cash flows, which really fund the company, in this case Rivian, long term. I wonder if maybe we're moving towards a situation where it's going to be acceptable for a car company to perhaps maybe reach just break even, or maybe slightly under. Maybe they have a negative cash flow that, I don't know, maybe, like, let's say Rivian reaches in 5 years time, instead of negative, whatever, 50% margin or 40% margin they're at now, they're at negative 2% margin or 3% margin, with the understanding that, hey, as self-driving tech comes down the pike and it starts being implemented, we're going to make that up in the back end. So it'll be okay for us to operate at a loss for the foreseeable future, as long as we can raise some money, with the understanding that at some point we're going to adopt self-driving technology, which is actually going to make the company profitable. Do you see that being a dynamic for like a new automaker like Rivian moving forward? Or do you think, like, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know how that fits in for Rivian. I mean, I think Tesla, you and I and most people who follow you agree that Tesla's going to get there first above Mobileye or Comma.ai or GM Super Cruise or Waymo, that Tesla's going to have a generalized full self-driving platform that's, being applied on a massive scale as opposed to like one unique city at a time or something geofenced. So I think once Tesla gets there, it's going to be very difficult. It's not going to be like a flip of a switch for Rivian to use that same or license that technology, even if Tesla's offering to license it. It's going to be a process, and it's not just going to be Rivian. It will be everyone trying to do it at the same time. And who's to say Rivian will get preferential treatment to, with Tesla engineers to implement it first on their, host EVs versus Ford. It seems like Ford has a pretty strong alliance with Tesla, with Elon at this point. It seems like, they were the first movers on the, so I would see Ford EVs almost being like the first to successfully license Tesla's technology going forward, just because of this first mover they did with Elon on the supercharging. I just feel like Elon and Farley have a good relationship maybe. So I don't know if that's enough for Rivian to justify the valuation it has. I just don't think so. I think once the Cybertruck comes out and once there's more F-150 Lightnings out there too, the demand for the Rivian, I don't know if it's going to be so high. Like it might stay where it is, which is fine. Like in where I live in the Bay Area of California, I see them all over the place. But for the demand to actually grow from where it is now, like while the Cybertruck and the F-150 starts ramping up, like that's going to be very difficult for them. Like they were the first mover in the electric pickup truck that was a good product that they can put out more. Like Ford did like 100 a month for a while or something. That's insignificant. It's really just selling prototypes. But Rivian's trying to sell like a few thousand a month, or whatever. And I just don't know if the demand for the Rivian is going to go up from here. It might stay where it is, which would be great. But even if it stays where it is, the valuation should probably be like 1/4 of what it is now, in my
So
mind.
what? No, for sure. What's interesting about that comment, though, so, and this is my anecdotal conversations with people, and this is just people that don't tend to be super into the EV world. It seems like there's better name recognition for the Rivian pickup truck than the F-150 Lightning, from what I've seen.
Yeah, there's more of them out in the
Or
wild for
it's
sure. Yeah.
yeah. But like even people talking about it, like when when I bring up that I have a Tesla or they find that I have a Tesla, it's like, oh yeah, I heard about that. And did you hear about the Rivian pickup truck? Like it's not the
Yeah.
F-150 Lightning. It's like, oh, did you hear about the
Yeah.
Rivian pickup truck? So I wonder how much as the EV adoption grows, because we know the momentum. I think it's very hard to deny now that, especially in the States and in places like China, really, I would
Mhm.
argue every developed nation we've reached a point of no return where it comes to EV adoption. I believe, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that too. But it seems like as we continue down that curve, the willingness of a person to buy an EV, I feel like there might be the newcomers that are strictly EVs might have a better chance of bringing customers in because that's what they know how to do. Whereas, say, a Ford or GM, they could have something against them that says, well, they build gas guards, they don't build EVs, and Tesla and Rivian
Yeah.
build EVs, so they know how to build it better. Do you think there's going to be that dynamic come into play at some point? How do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that dynamic is coming into play right now, and that's kind of the success Rivian has had, is that dynamic exactly what you described. So I think that's where they're at now. I just don't know if that carries forward to like some kind of growth in demand as the
Mm,
Cybertruck. People are going to say, "Oh, I can get this cool looking Cybertruck now." There's going to be some amount of people that would have bought Rivians that are now going to be buying Cybertrucks, right? We can't deny that, right? So
sure.
how much does that cut from Rivian's current demand? Is it 20%, 50%, 80%? I don't know, but it's some significant amount. So then you got to say, okay, is Rivian going to, beyond that, is it going to still grow its demand at a high percentage rate, even with that handicap? And with the handicap of Ford F-150, dealerships, Ford people that want to buy
Yeah.
EVs, they use dealerships, and the F-150 is going to be sold through dealerships. So you have a whole bunch of sales people, marketing people in micro economies, marketing these F-150 EVs, basically pushing the product, so that's going to also subtract some of the would-be Rivian demand. I just don't see it. I just don't see Rivian being a mass manufacturer of pickup truck. I might eat my words, and I could be wrong, and I'm not shorting Rivian at this time. I have in the past at different times, and um, but I think the name sounds good, but when you put the numbers to the valuation, I just can't see it working out long term for them.
Okay.
You
How?
know, their product might be
Yeah.
around, but there'll be a
Sure.
niche product, is what I'm saying. The valuation of the stock might be 5 to 10 billion for long term, not which at 15 billion right now. You know, so if they succeed, in my mind, I think their long term valuation would be like 5 to 10 billion or something.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you there. Where I might differ slightly is that perhaps in, say, the next 10 to 20 years, because of the lack of willingness from legacy auto to transition 10 years ago, and the
Yeah.
fact that a lot of these, you know, I'm going to use the Pareto rule here. So you have, say, out of the, I don't know, 70 million cars globally that got manufactured 80 in 2022. I forget the number, but whatever that is, Pareto would say, and again, this I could be 100% wrong, but if the innovator's dilemma is correct, where a lot of these legacy automakers will fail to transition, and the Pareto rule of 80-20 rule somewhat applies to this scenario, you would think that about 80% of that production capacity doesn't exist in 10 years, right? So right now, we're almost like we're trying to build up the capacity to be at replacement with the gas car. But because a lot of these folks will fail, that kind of means that and this is the value of death that everyone's talking about, is that at least I follow the EV space, you're not going to have that capacity long term. So under that scenario, even though Rivian might be like a niche automaker of, say, maybe 100,000 units, even let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say they get to 500,000 units as a percentage of total EV capacity in about 5 to 10 years, it seems like there would be a much higher percentage than there would be today. And if
Mhm.
the self-driving thing takes off and they are able to either license the Tesla technology or partner with somebody that comes somehow they develop their own suite and they're just as good at parity with Tesla, or even maybe, who knows, better, but I highly doubt that, then I think an argument could be made that a car valuation and auto valuation could be drastically different than it is today. So even though Rivian might make sense at a $5 to $10 billion valuation, or perhaps even less in today's terms, given the state of the EV market in about 5 to 10 years, once 80% of the capacity is kind of like in limbo because no one has
Mhm.
moved, could that play well to Rivian, and could that just naturally give them outsized demand in a market that just doesn't have enough supply? Did I make any sense there?
Yeah, that you make a lot of sense, and that in order for that to play out, they first have to be able to produce them profitably, right? Because if they're producing more cars at a
That's
loss,
fair.
then they're making it bigger losses, right? So you have to see their losses, diminish and become profitable at some point before that outcome. If that,
That's fair.
and that's one of the theses I have, is why they're not going to succeed, is they just, I think they have to pivot to the Amazon delivery van soon, as like their feature, because I
Mm,
think they're probably making a cost effect. They're probably redesign. I don't know. My guess is they need to pivot to something else. They'll still have the Rivian product at the current volumes where they're losing money, but in order to like excite investors, I feel like they have to really pivot to something a little different soon, and that's going to be like start delivering tens of thousands of delivery vans to Amazon that are like kind of cheap, but there's not consumers using it to report on it. They're just Amazon delivery drive. They're kind of cheap, but they
yeah.
work, and Amazon's paying them, and they're somewhat profitable for Rivian, and they can show investors, hey, look, we're being profitable. See, so
Yeah.
that's where I
Okay.
see Rivian's outcome most likely.
That's fair. Okay, got it. How so let's shift gears to the Tesla story. So, we've talked about Rivian for about 15-20 minutes here and
Yeah.
how this could impact Rivian, but it seems like Tesla for the last couple weeks, ever since the Ford charging announcement, it's been sort of and another one and another one and another one. The charging
Yeah.
stations adopting an ACS, GM and now Rivian coming forward and adopting the standard that Tesla created. How do you view the Tesla story arc in the last couple weeks, and where do you think we go from here? Just some broad thoughts, and then we'll deep dive a few things.
Yeah. I'm not so sure. Like, I just want to play a little devil's advocate to the narrative we're all kind of eating up about, like the correlation between these charging network agreements and Tesla's continuous stock run up. I think probably there is some truth to that, but I'm not for the reason everyone thinks. But I think I'm not so sure in a world where those partnership agreements didn't happen. Let's say it never happened, that Tesla would still not be where it is now today. Like, I think there's been sort of a momentum change in big cap tech stocks, which Tesla has been anointed to be one. Plus, it's a manufacturer of hard technology. It's not just some software big cap tech stock. So it's got some crazy like uniqueness about it, sort of like Nvidia in a way that it's like got software and it's hard tech. It's producing something physical that's in high
Yeah.
demand as well. So I think, and it's part of the AI story for many people. Real world AI. Elon's been selling that vision for years, and I buy it. I think it's true. That this I use it. You do too. And
Yeah.
we see it and we experience it. And so I think all this money being thrown into the AI, whether it's a bubble or just, a revaluation of stocks that have exposure to AI, I think Tesla's catching a part of that wave, a big part of that wave too. And don't forget, Tesla was I think if we look back, we'll say, oh, Tesla was way oversold going below $200 for so long. Now it's not even, it has to go up another 50% just to get back to its all-time high from here, so it's still got a ways to go just to get back to its all-time high. And many of these tech AI stocks are already past their all-time highs significantly, in NVIDIA's case significantly, but even Microsoft and some of these other, a lot of these tech stocks are big tech stocks are past their all-time highs already. So I'm not so sure the announcement. I think that helps. And I think there is some truth that some of the bears arguments, some of the last bear arguments are like, oh, GM, all the legacy makers, they're not sitting on their hands. They're going to make something better. They're going to do their own charging. So I think that the holes in those arguments are too much now to be overcome with this charging partnership. So maybe some of the bears are closing some of their positions, or some of the people that were skeptical, believing those, bearish arguments, are now like saying, hey, maybe those guys are wrong. Maybe Tesla is, Ford and GM are capitulating to Tesla's charging. So there could be some marginal buying, whether it's short covering and buying of people who are previously skeptical on top of that as well. But I think, absent the partnerships, Tesla could still be up a lot like it is now from the last, 15 trading days or whatever the streak is, with like 2 down days. What do you think,
Yeah.
Farley?
I mean, I really appreciate your viewpoint, because I'm on the camp of I think the charging announcements are in this again, this, I should have led the discussion with this, not financial advice, y'all. We're just two dudes
None
on
of
the
this is
internet
financial
talking.
advice. Yes, that's
Please.
right. Yeah.
I probably should have led. Do not do anything based with this information. Please do your own research. But the way I think about it is that the adoption of NACS, so Tesla standard, by all these automakers, I think it does two things. One, it legitimizes Tesla's strategy from the very beginning, that they've been going down the right path and they're making the right moves and they've made the right decisions, and that this is basically positioning them in a situation where they are the market leader. So, you start with the charging standard, and then the question becomes, well, what else are they ahead in? You had all these giant automakers who, for the longest time, to your point, were being sold as, hey, these are the people that actually know how to make cars. Tesla doesn't know how to make cars. They're a newcomer. They have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah,
Lo and behold, everyone, they're going on Elon's platform on Twitter saying, we love working with you, Elon. Great job.
They're bending the knee.
Yes. So psychologically speaking, I think that does something. And if I think about the market in the short term, through my experience investing, it does really appear that psychological things that are maybe like there is that sense of, wow, Tesla actually knows what they're doing, that could be driving the stock price in the short term. Like today's movement, like, would we really have been up 4% if the Rivian announcement wasn't made?
I think so. I think so.
Why?
I'm going to say, I think there's marginal buyers, institutional buyers that are not, that's what I think drives the stock the most. Not me and you getting excited about some news, which happens all the time. And then Tesla sometimes down, we just forget about it, But I think that, I think there's portfolio managers out there that run multi-billion-dollar hedge funds that maybe had, 1% of Tesla in their portfolio, and they're telling their traders, yeah, we're moving this up to 1.5%. And, you have a few marginal people like that, and that means millions of shares being bought in Tesla, net buyers. And there's not many sellers out there. There's not many people looking to sell millions of shares of Tesla right now. Maybe ARK Invest as they rebalance, as it becomes higher, but that's not that much. And then I don't think there's many people that want to sell into the strength where, that I think a lot of the weak bulls in Tesla, the weak institutional bulls especially, were cleared out in this last
they're gone.
down move. and they're mostly gone. And so the road up is going to be swift, for as institutions want to get a piece of Tesla in their portfolios again, or increase their exposure to Tesla. And when today I'm looking at the volume traded, I see 127 million shares already traded, right? And we still got the whole close to go through. So there's going to be probably, the average is 135 million. So it's probably going to be like 150, between 150 and 200 million shares traded today. So that to me tells me that there's some algos out there working to try to increase, to buy a large amount of large chunks of Tesla shares for some big mover, by some big institutions, I think. So when I used to work at investment banking in the back office, there'd be like these program trades, they called it. And it was when electronic trading was first becoming a thing. And basically all the trading is like electronic now, right? And so they would do these volume weighted average price trades. That was like and that's still the most common quantitative, like, algo trading for getting into or out of a big position for institution, is my understanding. And volume VWAP. And that means at the start of the day and at the end of the day, like a V, right? It's like this, like at the beginning of the day, the volume is the highest. In the middle of the day, it slows down. At the end of the day, the volume is highest traditionally. So when some institution says, I want to buy, 2 million shares of Tesla today, they can't buy it all in one 5-minute chunk, or in 10 minutes even. That'll drive the price up like $20. They're going to get terrible average price fill. And when they're done, there's people that gamed it and are selling down. So what they do is they put in a VWAP order with some big investment bank or some big broker they're using that runs an automated electronic trading system that does the VWAP trade. So that buys 1,000 shares in the first minute, then 1,000 shares in the second minute, then 1,000 shares 5 minutes later, then 1,000 shares 10 minutes after that. And in the middle of the day, it might be like 500 shares every 10 minutes. At the end of the day, again, it increases to 1,000 shares every minute. So it's just the VWAP curve. That's how it does to achieve the full. And I feel like that's happening today. And when you see these big up moves like this, a lot of time, I think there's some of that going on. And so I think this is a nice thing. And sometimes those get spread out over like 2 or 3 days in a row. There's some big institution, they know they're going to move the market if they try to buy, 2 million shares today. So they say, okay, I'll buy 500,000 today, 1 million tomorrow, and 500,000 the next day, So I think there's been a lot of that going on the last few weeks from institutions. That's my gut feeling.
But you're saying that the decision to put in those VWAP orders is based on the overall tech, right? But it's based on the overall tech and AI momentum versus some of this charging. Okay.
I think there's a lot of that. Yep. Yeah. I think a lot of the tech and AI momentum. Yeah, I do.
Okay. Because I mean, if that was the case, wouldn't, like to your point of Nvidia being back at all-time highs and past all-time highs, and all the tech names being at all-time highs, wouldn't the same apply to Tesla as well, if that was truly the case?
Well, we're working that way, just to a lesser degree. Nvidia is more like the most pure play AI exposure you can get right now. I think that's the consensus among institutional Wall Street. After this last earnings thing, everyone Nvidia is like the nervous system that AI is going to be running on. So, and then Microsoft on top of that. Microsoft, ChatGPT, OpenAI alliance. And then there's Google, and then there's some people say Meta or Facebook or whatever. So there's a few other players in there. But those are but Tesla falls into that basket, and so some of these institutional managers are like, all right, I need to increase my Nvidia to 1%, 2%. I need to increase Microsoft to 2%, and let's put Tesla to 1.5% or whatever. So they're all increasing their positions in all these AI related, basket of stocks. And Tesla's a huge benefactor, and rightly so. We've known this for years. We've been waiting for this moment, with Tesla at least. So it's happening. They're getting valued on the AI technology that they have now. They're starting to get valued. It's still a long way to go in my mind.
Okay, so let me pick your brain on that. So you said there's a long way to go. So even though and again, this is hypotheses, right? Like we're hypothesizing on things. So you're saying that a lot of these managers could have started recognizing some of that AI long-term value that Tesla can bring as a business, but there's still a long way to go. So walk me through how long, is this a multi-year thing? Is this going to be once robotaxi is live, all of it will get recognized? How are you thinking about that equation?
Yeah, to me, the reason I'm so heavily invested still, that I'm sticking with Tesla and so convicted and excited for the long-term future, is the Tesla bot, Optimus, and I think that's going to be the real killer application of Tesla's real world AI. It's going to just be, I buy Elon's, description of what that's going to be like with, about how he's proven to me many times over the years that they can deliver on his vision, and it just takes longer than expected sometimes. But the next shoe to drop is going to be FSD, technology, robotaxi technology on the Tesla cars. And that'll start showing up in, the quarterly earnings reports when people are upgrading, to, spending more money to upgrade to full self-driving. And then maybe they have some experimental robotaxi city like Miami or Austin that's allowing Tesla robotaxis to work within their proximity, so you'll have things like that pop up that'll, like, over time, I think, inch the Tesla value, not inch it, but it might, jaggedly move it up valuation to, like, maybe from 1 trillion to 2 trillion market cap or something like that. But I think the bot, then once that starts happening, people are going to see around the corner to, like, oh, the Tesla bot might be real. Let's start looking into that, So I think that's going to get all of us excited, and we'll be like 10 trillion valuation it deserves, and we'll start seeing the path to that. And Wall Street will still take a little longer to get there, and maybe Berkshire Hathaway or something, and starts buying into Tesla between 1 and 2 trillion or something to get in late or something. But at some point, I think the Tesla bot, that's going to be super exciting. I still don't know exactly, what it's going to entail. I just know it's going to be big, and I think it's a very high probability. It's not definite, but I think it's a very high probability. It makes me excited to stay long-term invested, knowing that I have the grounding of the FSD technology around the corner as well.
But you think most of that recognition is going to come from the bot, not FSD going live. So it's even though
in the long term, yeah.
In the long term, okay,
10 years out, from 5 to 10 years out from here, yeah.
So imagine Tesla bot didn't exist. What percentage of, and say it was just Tesla FSD, what percentage of the value do you think Wall Street has recognized thus far on pace to that full valuation being baked into the stock price, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think Tesla could get to 2 to 5 trillion market cap, just with the FSD robotaxi, relatively quickly, like in a matter of, like, it could jump up to there in like 1 year. I think 1 year, meaning like if there's, like, FSD goes live in a few cities and people are more buying it, I think you could jump from, like, 1 to 2 to even 3 or 4 or 5 trillion pretty quickly in a year, let's say. But then it might hover there for a while. And even though Tesla's producing, 10 million cars a year and selling more, like, their PE is going to compress over time because they're, sort of like what we've seen historically with Tesla. It jumps quickly and then it kind of stabilizes for a while before it jumps again. So I think that last jump will not happen though if the tops of what Tesla's doing is just producing a ton of EVs and FSD technology. I think the Tesla valuation could get to 10 trillion eventually, but it's going to be a slower progress. It's not going to be a jump to 10 trillion from, like, 3 or 4 trillion. Like Berkshire Hathaway might buy in around 3 or 4 trillion, for example. And then it just goes up, 20% a year on average for, 5 years going forward to get to, like, whatever, So I think that's kind of the story it would play if there was no Tesla bot, which is good too, but it's just not as exciting to me as the Tesla bot, that next jump after the FSD jump.
Yeah. Let me pick your brain on the Berkshire Hathaway point because, from my perspective, and I'm not Berkshire Hathaway, and that's obvious because I don't have hundreds of billions of dollars to my name. Okay. These guys know what they're doing. Charlie and Warren are both legends. But, if their MO has been to find no-brainer opportunities that are easy to identify and it's almost guaranteed returns in the long term, that's conceptually how I think about their investment strategy. And I'd love for you to, because you are very familiar with how they operate, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. But isn't Tesla today, hasn't it approached the almost no-brainer category that in the long term, it's going to be around and it's going to have a huge impact? And the reason why I say this is they're profitable, maybe the valuation is very rich for someone like a Warren or Charlie, but you have the NACS adoption from other automakers, which gives, I think, Tesla, hey, like, they know what they're doing kind of point. And then you also have Elon being courted by basically every country in the world to build factories in their country. Isn't that enough data that says this seems like a no-brainer opportunity? How do you think about that? I would love to hear your thoughts on if this is something that maybe Berkshire Hathaway would even be willing to recognize, or is it just like we shouldn't be thinking about it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, just a disclaimer. I'm not probably as expertise in Berkshire Hathaway's, valuation or their thought process as you think. I've read some Warren Buffett letters and quotes. I haven't even read his, and
You're an expert
the
like
other guy
everybody else,
Munger.
Emmett.
Yeah, Charlie Munger and stuff, and I've heard them talk, and I know their story and everything. And one might even say, I put a controversial tweet out recently, like, if it was not for a Geico, would Warren Buffett be seen as the number one investor of all time? So I think he'd still be a legend, but I don't know if he'd be consensus number one investor of all time if it was not for Geico. So he's
Mm-hmm.
been involved in Geico from the very beginning, even before Berkshire Hathaway started, and then Berkshire Hathaway took it. And I asked like ChatGPT 4 to help me figure out what his return would be without Geico, and I couldn't quite figure it out. But it admits that it's somewhat, it seemed to agree with me that it was somewhat controversial. My hypothesis that it could be controversial, his performance being, the best of all time or whatever without Geico. I don't know. I tried to prompt it. I need to work on my prompt engineering with ChatGPT 4. But what I'm saying is, he's got an old school way of thinking about investing in businesses. It's worked, and it's worked very well, and he's done very well. He's picked a few gems, and among but he's also had failures. In some of his picks. IBM, or there's a host of other failures that people don't talk about. They just talk about like the 5 picks, Coca-Cola, or Geico, and like 1 or 2 other names usually. And I think he's super wise, and he'd be a legendary investor no matter what. But would he be, is he the best of all time? For sure. I don't know. I mean, I think you miss Tesla. If you miss Tesla, are you the best investor of all time? I don't think that's possible. I don't think you can be the best investor of all time if you're missing the best investment of all time right in front of you the whole time during your career. So I think that's a point people need to think about. That doesn't mean he's not a legendary investor. I'm just saying he's not the best of all time. And now you have to say, okay, well, why is he still a legendary investor? Well, he's got a bunch of he's got a great track record. He's got a great picks, but he values businesses a certain way. He's a certain mindset, and he's self-admittedly himself that he's not great with technology. I think he got into Apple late. Like he could have gotten to Apple much
Oh yeah.
earlier, obviously, and he got in eventually, and it's done well still for him. So I think he could still get into Tesla, but late. What you and I would say is late, and it could still do well for him. So I think that's still in the cards for him. But he's like 97 or something. I don't know. Charlie Munger's like 100 or so. I don't know how much longer they're going to be alive. Like, are they going to even be alive to see Tesla? Are their minds even capable to think in terms of like technology advancing faster and faster? Like that we witness right now. Like 10 years, 5 or 10 years from now, technology is going to be so unrecognizable in so many ways than what we see today. And I don't think I think a lot of value investors like him, they see the past and they think the past rate of progress is indicative of what the progress going forward is going to be. And I don't think that's true. And I think that's the weak point for value investors and tech companies. So you just have to pick the right tech companies that are going to be part of that curve. And if you do, you can outperform the value investors greatly. So I think, we had Drew Dixon on our channel. Matt and I, the last interview I did with Matt on Good Soul, we did with Drew Dixon, who's a
Shout out, Drew.
bear and a value investor. And I'm not saying he's wrong, but his viewpoint is that the legacy guys are going to find a way. And, I think he kind of has a similar viewpoint that, the technology of Tesla is nothing too special that others can't reproduce. And it's not going to continue innovating faster. Like the innovation of Tesla is mostly done, or the others are going to catch up, so it's just, I just don't think that mindset works going forward if you want to be considered the best investor of all time. I don't think he wants to be considered that, but that's what many people anoint him as, the best investor of all time. And does that make sense?
No, that's
a lot of
it does.
stuff.
No, it does. It makes perfect sense. I just find it interesting that when Elon made comments earlier this year, or was it late last year, he says something along the lines of Tesla is going to be able to generate cash flows and be, sort of in a financial position that even Charlie and Warren from Berkshire Hathaway would start to look at the name. Do you remember that? Do you remember that comment he made from earlier this year?
I remember something about.
Year?
Where was that? Where was that question? So tell me again.
I want to say it was like quarterly earnings call. Someone in the comments, if you remember, Elon talked about that it would start becoming a like a story that people like Charlie and Warren, Berkshire Hathaway, would start to think about getting into. And I just
comment on them in the past, like if they had a chance to invest a while back, but they never did. Or so I heard him mention that a few times. I don't remember him saying that but maybe he did in like a off the cuff remark to an answer in
Yeah.
an annual meeting like last year or something like that. It's possible, yeah. But I'm not sure. I didn't take it like maybe it was at the valuation Tesla was at when it was like $150 or so. I don't know, but when it was like 500 billion or less. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll wait and see if somebody in the comment section can remember exactly where it was from. But I remember that comment, and that's kind of what got my mind thinking. Is like, wow, okay, so if Elon's kind of thinking about Tesla in this lens, I wonder if they have things up their sleeve that are really gonna start flexing Tesla's muscle from a financial perspective. That even people like Charlie and Warren can't ignore it. And it seems like thus far this year, I mean, maybe accidentally, maybe folks are starting to warm up to the name from that perspective because of AI's long-term impact to Tesla's valuation and so on and so forth. So it's almost like, it's been such an odd year because, and I forget who I was talking to this about. Maybe it was in the community forum last Friday, but we started the year in the dumpster. I mean, my God, I haven't seen. That was probably the most pessimistic I've ever seen the Tesla community,
yeah.
investing community be. And then now, what, 6 months later, we're nowhere near all-time highs, but everybody's quite cheerful. Elon Musk is making all these rounds. As soon as Tesla said they're going to advertise, all of a sudden mainstream media is like, wow, amazing job, Tesla. Great job with the charging standard. Is Elon the GOAT? Is he the
Yeah,
great?
yeah.
Like you can see the freaking just how much a little signal that, hey, yeah, we might advertise, and every network's like, oh my God, okay, we got to say nice things so they advertise with us. It's just
Yeah, they
hilarious.
definitely changed their tone after that. I feel like the tone of the
Oh,
media changed after his comment there, so that helped, I think, just that. Yeah. And
fascinating stuff. Yeah.
fascinating. Yeah. I mean, I think it's just yeah, it's crazy to see these roller coaster rides with Tesla. You and I have both been on many of them where it
Yeah.
goes up and down, and the emotions and the toxic. There's multiple cultures, subcultures within factions within Tesla now. There's like the toxic maximalists that then there's like realists, and there's skeptics that are still bulls, and there's like lots of sub factions. But I feel like the most toxic people, I think a lot of them got burnt out and flushed out. The people that were
Yeah.
just like pure gamblers on short-term call options or whatever, a lot of them just got completely burnt out in this last kind of flush down to $100 a share. And so it's been a nice kind of cleansing to get rid of some of that. I don't see as much of that as I used to see, which is nice. That like,
Yeah.
the Tesla to the moon, I don't know. It just used to be over the top sometimes. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's crazies in this Tesla. And there's still crazies like any community, but I just think there's less of it now than there used to be.
I agree 100%. Let me ask you this question because we did this exercise with a community forum a couple weeks ago. Think about your investing journey, and then think about the last 12 months in the Tesla name. So like between what was it around the September and January, February, where it was extremely challenging to sort of separate. It seemed like to separate signal from noise when it came to the Tesla story. What are some of the lessons you've learned during that period of time that you could share with everyone that might be of value? Like, is there something new that you learned in the last 12 months, call it?
Something new.
Or something that really stuck out as like, man, this thing keeps repeating over and over again. It's so important to have this in mind. Like what's something that
Yeah.
sticks out?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that sticks out the most is the product. Like you have to go back down to like, first principles investing is like for Tesla is nice in that I can touch and feel and use the product. Unlike something like Snowflake, which I don't know, or Palantir, I don't know what the frick their product. People talk about those stocks. I can't get behind that because I don't understand their product or software. I don't use it. I don't know it. But I can use and touch and feel and use a Tesla. And I can talk to other people that do that, and I can get their experience. And if I can just remember that it's the best product, and I still think it's the best product, and everyone around me who buys one loves their Tesla, then as long as that's the case, I know my investment thesis for Tesla long term is still firm, as long as they're still producing them profitably, which they were, and then when they were squeezing margins so much, that's what worried me when Elon's like, well, we could hypothetically, if we wanted to sell them for even money and then make money in the future, because he's so, but I still believe in the long term picture, but I can still see Tesla in that case getting valued, much less than it was at that time potentially, and be very painful if Tesla was selling cars at cost, basically, if they wanted to actually do that. But I still remember I still know the product is the best, and if I started seeing other cars, the Rivian is a great product for a pickup truck, right? But if I started seeing like people buying Polestars and Mach-E's and whatever e-trons like crazy, if I started seeing that a lot and people saying I love this better than my Tesla, so much better, or if I saw some more anecdotes to that in the real world or even on YouTube channels, like by real people, then I would just start second guessing, like, maybe I should exit some. But that seems to be so far from the truth that, as long as I know the product is the best, and even if there's another product that's competitive, like maybe the Rivian pickup truck, they can't produce it profitably. It's got to be a product that's competitive to Tesla, that's being produced profitably. Then I have to start thinking my second. Then I really second guess my thesis, my long-term investment thesis on Tesla potentially. But I just don't. I don't see that happening. If that makes sense, that's where I have to go to if I see the stock getting killed. I have to go to like, what's the first principle investment thesis here?
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that. The product is the most important. Just go back to what the company's building, and then make sure that they're still doing what you thought they were supposed to be doing. And if they are, then it's likely to be a short-term thing versus an actual fundamental change to the story. Yeah. Is that a good way of thinking about it?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah, and there could be bumps, like even without if Tesla never admitted they were going to do, like, let's say the worst, and they were selling cars at cost, and they were like, I'm never going to advertise, and Elon's like, no, we're never going to advertise, we'll just sell cars at cost or whatever. Even if he was just totally refusing to do that, I still think long term Tesla will win the EV space, but it's just going to be a much more painful ride the next few years first. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's fair. As you were talking and giving your wise advice, we got a $2 super sticker coming from William and a $10 super sticker from Brian. So, cool. Emmet, you got a couple IPAs coming your way once you come to Austin, my friend. We're gonna hook you up. Hell yeah! Okay. Thank you all very much for your contribution. Super appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, I accidentally clicked on this, but it's perfect segue to what I was about to bring up. Any thoughts on Giga India potential? Elon met India PM today again. Let me go ahead and share my screen and get everybody up to speed on what Moon is talking about here. So there is a video shared from a good friend of the show, Mr. Sawyer. Let me go ahead and reshare that again because I don't think I clicked on share audio. Yeah, I did. See? That's why I need a producer wife. I don't know what I'm doing. So Sawyer Merit news: Elon Musk to meet with India Prime Minister Narendra Modi in New York within the next few days. During a recent interview, Elon indicated India was an interesting location for a potential Tesla Gigafactory. Let me go ahead and play this, Emmet. So I don't know what they're saying. So let me go ahead and click this, and then make sure everybody in the chat, make sure you can hear this as well.
So that was Republic TV's ground report. But the latest we are getting in now, viewers, is that Prime Minister Modi will be meeting over 20 thought leaders in New York. And Niranjan Narayanaswamy, our executive editor, is joining us on the phone line. Niranjan, good morning. This is a big ticket meeting, Prime Minister Modi meeting 20 thought leaders in New York, and it includes Elon Musk, the Twitter chairman, and also the CEO of Tesla. Last month we saw that he met with some government officials as well, because he's very much interested, for as far as business is concerned. Electric vehicle maker considers investing in the manufacturing, in India. Very important, and this is one event that the whole world will be watching. This is a big ticket meeting, 20 prominent names. Niranjan.
Well, absolutely, and many of them are believers in the India story. For example, Elon Musk is a big believer. He believes India is one of the biggest markets, and he has a lot of investments in China. Of course, Tesla has done big business in China, and he's looking forward to making that big Indian entry. So in that sense, Elon Musk is by far one of the biggest thought leaders in the world, given simply how influential he is.
Okay. Your reaction?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think Modi's meeting several thought leaders, and Musk is one of several, but probably the most important in our minds, and probably in Modi's mind, I would imagine. So I don't know how long that meeting is going to be, or is it going to be in a group setting? Is he going to have one-on-one time with Elon? If he has one-on-one time, is it for 2 minutes? Is it for 2 hours? So there's a lot of variables we don't know, but I think it's a good sign. It's signal to some degree. I just don't know to what degree, but it's signal in the right direction for Tesla in India potential. So if and when Tesla does something in India, that would be nice. One devil's advocate there is China. Are they going to view it as nice? I don't know. They're not very happy. They don't. I think them and India are very competitive with each other, and they don't like each other. And so hopefully there's no penalty on the China business, Tesla China side, if Elon comes to some alliance with Modi and India on building things there. I don't think that would happen, but it's a possibility as well. So people should consider that as well. But I think Elon wants to do what's best for the world, and what's best for the world is go to India, the second biggest country by population, or maybe it's the biggest, I forget, but to actually do something there in terms of building out Tesla's technology and infrastructure for sustainable energy and transport. So it makes sense. Elon wants to do it, but it has to be on the right terms. And I think Modi and his team have probably they've been playing hardball with Elon and Tesla, but maybe they're ready to bend the knee as well.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about what's been happening in the last couple weeks and months is that Elon Musk really has ramped up his visits with world leaders, and I wonder how much of this. I mean, you have to think that all of this sort of meet up with people is directly tied with his goal of getting to 20 million cars per year by 2030. Because without all these sort of conversations with presidents and prime ministers to try and get the best deal possible to open up a factory, you can't get to 20 million without at least 5 or 6 more factories, right? So do you think India is going to be the next one? Like, how do you think about the next facility, the next factory that Tesla is going to look to open up?
Well, definitely, Mexico is right around the corner. And then,
Sure.
I think Europe, France and Italy and other countries are probably courting him hard. And now India is courting him. So I don't know where the next would be. I mean, it could be like 3 at a time. Maybe they'd say, okay, we're going to open locations in India and Italy, in start process on those in 2025 or something. They might announce that sometime into this year or 2024. So I think it's in the cards. But it has to do with, is India and Modi, are they going to, agree to Tesla's, terms, right? So I think Tesla has a certain set of minimum terms they need to have different countries agree to. And it seems like some of the European countries are ready to do it and competing with each other. And just a matter of how motivated, how much, I don't know the India government situation well enough to know what kind of constraints Modi has. Is he just, can he offer Elon whatever he wants, or does he have to go back to his, constituents in India and get them to agree? I don't really know the whole India economy well enough, but it would be a great location to have just to get going there, because, billions of people live in India, and there's lots of, they could probably build, a $25,000 car very successfully if they wanted to. Yeah. What do you think? Do you think India's going to be next, or what? I mean, I don't. You probably have a better guess than me. I mean, you watch this stuff very close.
For me, it's like the one rumor I keep hearing, or the one thing I keep hearing from people that are actually familiar with that part of the world, is that there are Modi does have certain restrictions around importing. I guess building in India. It seems to be quite difficult for a company like Tesla to go in and actually build a manufacturing plant there. That it's not going to be as advantageous for Tesla from that perspective. That there are other better places to build the factory. But what I keep going back to is sort of what you said, and some folks said in the comments section, that India is now the world's most populated country in the world, number one. 4 billion people or something, like an insane amount of people, and they're a developing nation, developing economy, and they have a huge need for affordable transportation, affordable EVs in the long term. And then the other part of it too is that India is at least from the research I've done, and I would love to hear people's thoughts in the comment section below, is that it's primed to also take advantage of Tesla energy and solar power and everything that it sort of provides, because it gets a lot of sun. It's sort of located in a part of the world where you're going to be able to take advantage of solar energy quite easily. I'm not super familiar with its raw materials and sort of, are there battery raw materials close enough for them to really bring in? But I'm guessing that's where China comes in and maybe neighboring countries. So, these are part of the equation. But I think if Elon Musk is talking with the Indian prime minister, to me, it would seem like they're going to be at some point a host for a Tesla factory. I mean, why wouldn't they? Like, how could you not have a factory in that? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I see Moon in the comments says India is the next China in terms of economic development. And I feel like that's true. I feel like that's been the case. People have been saying that for years, though. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, why there hasn't been like a flippening of India's economy over China, or if that'll ever happen. And then Raymond Chen says some of the Apple suppliers regretted the move to India from China. That would be interesting. I would like to know specifics. If there, what, Raymond, if you have specifics, it would be interesting to know where you get that from. And then I saw one other comment that was interesting. Yeah, I don't remember what the other, but there was some other good comments in the comment section.
Yeah.
So I think Mimi says all the suppliers have to be in India too. They are very protective. Yeah, I heard that was one of the terms, but maybe they're going to relax that term. And I think, but Elon and Tesla have, I think, agreed to do some kind of trial run on there in India. So that was one of the terms that all of the, everything has to be built within India. Like nothing can be imported from other places, it sounds like. So pollution's terrible there, she says. Yeah, I think I've heard that too in India. So yeah, we'll see what happens. It'd be a nice if Elon and Tesla can be the pioneers of like Western technology industry coming into India and building something really substantial in India. That'd be really cool. Like people have done that. Tesla, I mean, Apple and others have done that with China, but now India, it feels like there's a big opportunity there. Just needs to break in there and get things going.
Yeah, for sure. This comment from Toronto Greenhouse: India has a huge population, but cars cost $10,000, and energy infrastructure needs a lot of development. Maybe an energy storage mega factory. That's another great point here. Yeah. And other great comments as well. By the way, if you are joining us, we have about 1,000 viewers. So thank you all very much for joining us live. We will do a Q&A session here shortly. So if you would like to ask a question, make sure you write question before your question in all caps, so I can pull it up super easily on the comment section on the screen here. I don't have producer wife with me today, so any help you can give me, I highly appreciate it.
One thing I want to ask you, Farzad,
please,
before we I want to ask you something or bring up something. Is what did you think about the Zuby interview? Did you listen to it all? I mean, it's first of all, for me, it was kind of hard because you have to listen to like 90 minutes on Twitter, and like if your phone screen shuts down, you got to start it over and figure out where you left off. It was kind of a pain, but I think that'll be figured out in time. But what did you think overall about the actual content of the interview?
Yeah, I watched the interview, so I think I can definitely appreciate. I thought the overall sentiment I saw on Twitter from people that follow the story very closely, they said, "Oh my God, here we go again." It's the same thing. He's answered these questions 1,000 times. I think what I found interesting about the Zuby interview, though, is that he did get a few. It was mostly around the societal impact of Twitter and how sort of he behaves as a human being. I think Zuby's content is, I follow him not super closely, but I definitely follow him on Twitter, and I've watched his content. I think he does some interesting stuff from that perspective. So seeing Elon in that setting more and more, I view it as something that will broaden, I think, his appeal to more and more people, and in a way is like I think of it as a sort of a loose marketing for his products and what he stands for. I think we're entering an age in the 2020s, if you want to call it. It seems like if you're somebody who is not afraid to be vulnerable and honest and you're not afraid to voice your opinion on things, I think that could bode well for you in a case. And I think that was sort of a showcase of that. But as far as new information about Tesla, the technology, I there was nothing there. But I don't know if Zuby was the right person to ask that. I think he had a different thing in mind. What did you think of the interview?
Yeah, no, I agree with your take. And I think a lot of us Tesla fanatics and Elon fanatics, everyone who's listening here and watching probably were disappointed because we're all hoping for like new information about Tesla, new thoughts from Elon that we haven't heard before. So we're all sort of a little disappointed in the content, feel like, 90% of the stuff I've heard before. But I think it was good overall because Zuby has a whole different audience that hasn't listened to Elon interviews before. So they're all listening to Elon's thoughts on this stuff for the first time. So we have to keep that in mind. So I think overall it's a success. But on the other point, I think it would be great, if someone, and I think you personally, he responds to a lot of your tweets now. You're like on his follow, you're on his list of Tesla people, fans he follows. There's a bunch
we should
of people,
post each other sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be great. I think what do you think about this idea? What do you think about it? Like once a month, Elon does like a 30-minute check-in interview with like someone like you, for example, just to ask new questions about what's going on with Tesla or anything. Could be anything, but it's going to be it's guaranteed to be new because you have already like maybe there'll be some old stuff he's regurgitated, but over time he's not going to repeat the same things to you that he did the previous month, right? You're going to be continuously building on new dialogues over time, and I think that would be the way for us to all get a better window into his mind and how it works. Because he defaults to the same stories or same analogies about things. A lot of times, I think he just goes into autopilot mode, and you don't want to be the interviewer and interrupt him and be like, "Oh, you've already said that. Let me go on a new." You can't. That'd be rude, right? It's hard to do. So I think, but I don't think he would do that naturally with someone if he's doing the same interview with that person every month or whatever for 30 minutes or. I think it would be a really good solution for us all that hungry to learn new thoughts from Elon, because that's what we want. We want to hear like his new ideas, his new inspirations, his new insights about the world, whatever it is. And he tweets them out, which is cool. But verbally in an interview format is really nice when you hear it too, because you can really expound upon it and you can get his, you understand a lot more from his expressions or whether he's joking or not. So I think doing like a regular interview check-in with someone would be really neat if that could happen, because that would be the way we all continuously learn from him, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's a great idea. I mean, yeah, that would be an honor, obviously. I think there are many people.
It could be many people. Yeah, it could be anyone. There's people. A lot of people. Yeah. But you as an example would do great, but it could be like, whoever else, Dave Lee, obviously, it could be, who else is comfortable.
Rob Maurer. Yeah.
Rob Maurer, Lex Friedman, whatever, it could be Lex Friedman. I don't know, but it could be just someone regularly, but Lex Friedman's interviews are like 3 hours. I don't think he wants to do them like that. But like a half hour, an hour interview one-on-one with the person just to check in, and you can ask them updated things about the current events, but also about like, what are your thoughts on this? If this happened, or, it would be really cool because you'd guarantee never to repeat the same thing from the previous month, really here,
sure.
It would just make sense.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clip that. I'm going to clip that from this video. I'm going to post it on Twitter and tag him and see if we can get him to the right?
That's great.
I'll tag you too. Everybody, we're going to post it on Twitter, retweet it, and if Elon agrees to it, great. I don't care. It could be me, Emmet, Dave, whoever. Joe the plumber. I don't care.
It could be someone that just regularly has a conversation that they may make public to get the new information, new insights out of Elon. Yeah.
Great idea. And then we can pull questions from investors, like, even if it's once a quarter. Like I think the cadence is up for grabs, but we can always bring something forward that's new. And then the person that's chatting with him, then hopefully that person can steer the conversation somewhere that has been unexplored. I wonder how much he has to think about being careful what he shares, because he has Tesla's a public company and SpaceX has contracts with governments, right? The U.S. government. I wonder how much of it is just him being overly cautious on what he can answer with, but I do think the framing of a lot of questions can be changed so that new information comes out and brand new topics. Like the one thing I've been dying to talk to him about is how he thinks about the culture of Tesla long term as a company adds more people, because that's something I'm intimately familiar with. But how Like, how do you make sure that exists when you're when you're hiring 1 million people globally, potentially in 10 years? Like, how do you think about that? You know, like, what's the thought process
Yeah, it's
there?
gonna get crazy. It's gonna be hard to keep that
Yeah.
culture of innovation going. Yeah, how do you do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
No, it's great.
Okay, we'll put it out there. Yeah, great idea. Hopefully we can get him to agree. And because I did see also on Twitter, he said he also prefers technical interviews. And then some folks came in. Jordan from the Limiting Factory is like, dude, let me know. I would love to sit down. We had other folks as well. And I was like, if you need a moderator, let me know. And then, Jordan's like, when you have two folks with Asperger's in a room, you need somebody with a human touch. So we definitely appreciate you being there.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Some of the translate.
And I made a joke. Yeah, I made a joke. I'm like, who's Asperger? I've never heard of him. Anyway, I was being a silly person. Okay. Yeah. All right. Oh, this is hilarious. Farza, don't offer him a joint. I don't know, man. Who knows? If we're in person, anything can happen. Maybe we'll have a beer and chat, have a good time. Okay. Ready for some Q&A, Emmet, for the next 20 minutes or so? Cool with that?
Ready. I saw a super chat one. Did you see the super chat one there?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
StreamYard does this thing where it automatically highlights super chats. It's super helpful. All right, let's go ahead and start with that. 11 euro super chat. Thank you so much for your contribution. The IPA fund grows for Emmet. Question. Why do you think Tesla doesn't sell extended drivetrain warranty as a product? The drivetrain is already designed for 1 million miles. It would increase margins and address consumers' battery-related fears. How do you think about that question?
Yeah, I mean, extended drivetrain. I mean, there's an initial warranty of like 100,000 miles or 150. I can't remember what it is exactly, but I thought it was something like that. But the extended, that'd be a great way to maybe boost some demand because people that are concerned, like, oh, I heard those batteries don't last a long time. You can say, well, they have the drivetrain warranty up to 500,000 miles or whatever, like instead of 100,000. So I think there is, opportunity there, but maybe they just don't feel it's necessary at this time. Maybe it's one of the many demand levers incremental demand levers they feel like they could pull in the future if they need to. Elon's referenced they have a lot of demand levers. He's referenced that before. So maybe this is one of the many incremental ones they could pull at some point. But yeah, I don't know. I also heard that supercharging the car regularly as opposed to charging at home can make the battery, the drivetrain not as last not as long. Maybe that's the battery. I don't know. Am I confusing the drivetrain and the battery? I don't really know. I think the drivetrain includes the battery, right? So
the way Corey defines it is like it's slightly different, but you're saying motors plus batteries, basically.
Yeah,
that entire skateboard. Yeah.
So I'm not as technical. That would be a great question for Corey, like you said, reference there. Next time you guys talk, you should ask him this question. But I'm not an expert to know enough. But it hasn't affected my buying decision or anyone I know's buying decision. But there's some people who might affect their decision. Do you have any thoughts as far as that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting here is that they could offer it, but I think it would be a much more powerful thing if they just included with the purchase of the vehicle. Like, because one of the, and again, this is probably a better thing for Corey as we're talking, but as their electric drivetrain and battery combination, as their expertise gets better and better over time, I think it's not unconceivable that the drivetrain and the battery would be so reliable that just offering, you say, hey, you buy a Tesla, maintenance is on us for the life of the vehicle because we know it's not going to break. Yeah. I think something like that would be so powerful, especially as they're going down the price bracket to the compact car and maybe the robotaxi, if you want to call it that, where it's like, hey, $25,000 or whatever, but if you buy it with Tesla finance, maintenance is included because we know you're not going to need to repair it ever outside. If you get into a collision, then that's, you can use Tesla insurance to deal with that. And then all in $450 a month. And we'll give you, and that includes charging at home. You know how they have the Texas plan for $30 a month? You can just get basically unlimited charging overnight or something at your house. Just make a bundle something together that includes something like this, but it's already in the price. And then somebody can just pay, because you think about a car buyer, the one thing I've learned is that they're majority of them are payment buyers. They want to get as much car as possible for the money. And so if you can spend $450 to $500 a month all in for car payment, service, insurance, charging, everything, then who wouldn't take that? And I think that's what an EV enables long term, is that sort of equation to come to fruition. Just make it so stupid easy. $500, drive a Tesla, you're done. You know, don't have to worry about nothing else. Literally everything's covered.
Just all in one package deal. They could do that, bundle it and make it a premium. Even just people just want the peace of mind of knowing it's all taken care of.
Exactly. Cool. All right, let's do the next question here from Andrew. Question: repeated in all caps. Has Emmet recently bought out of the money calls amid the Tesla run-up?
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? I know Andrew, and
nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in the fund. We've talked about it before. We've done some of that before, I think, in the fund. But my personal Tesla holdings actually sold some covered calls on a portion of my shares at like the worst possible time. Like it was just a portion of my shares, not like a majority or anything. But I was like, I need to start generating some income to like live life. I can't just be borrowing cash continuously against my Tesla holdings and going to deeper margin balance. So I was like, I gotta. So then the day after, literally like the day after, 2 days after I sold those covered calls, that Tesla began its historic 14-day in a row rise. And I was like, oh crap. And I knew that would be a risk though going into it. That's why I didn't sell it on like even half of my shares, just a small portion. But I was ready to eat my or sleep in the bed that I made with those shares and taking massive. It was June 16th expiry, so it expired Friday, and I bought some of them back at a great loss. But I let the rest of it just exercise and sell the shares. So now I have no margin balance, which is nice. I had a small margin balance that was growing over time, but I have a big tax bill on those shares that were sold. So, just reinforce that I'm not a call seller. That's not my forte. I've never really sold covered calls. The one time I tried to dip my toe in it just burned me crazy there. So, it's a whole different mindset, buying calls versus selling calls. And, I just buying calls though. I've bought calls. I still have some long-term calls on my personal account that I've bought a way back too. So, I always have some of that in my account, but most of my personal holdings is Tesla shares. And then the fund that I run is a lot of options though.
Got it. Thank you very much for your answer. Let's do the next one. Philip, question: what about factory in Canada, or is that announced? Heard a boss from Big Mining saying they had Tesla down the road. A Dylan Loomis interview. Any thoughts there?
I think they've probably been talking to Canada. Canada makes sense for a lot of reasons, I think. But it sounds like the regulators or the legislators or whatever, it feels like Tesla might have gotten cold feet with Canada and decided on Mexico. So I don't know if Canada is still in the, to be honest, I don't know if if it's still in the cards for Tesla to build a factory there anytime soon. What do you think, Farzad?
Yeah, I mean, I think that might still be in play, only because there is, I believe, Toyota and Nissan or Honda. There are two automakers up in Canada that build cars today, and they do have proximity to a lot of raw materials. I think it was in Quebec or Ontario, one of the two provinces. I forget which one, but sort of that northern part of the continent has a ton of stuff for Tesla to utilize. So I don't think they're necessarily out of the question, but perhaps I do wonder how what you just said about, well, they landed on Mexico and Canada was sort of the alternative, and they ended up going with Mexico anyway. But I think long-term Tesla is going to need facilities basically in every major country. If they really want to make 20 million cars per year in some capacity, 20 million cars per year, their energy, their bot, whatever else they decide to build, they're going to have a presence basically everywhere. Every other major, think about every major automaker and every major energy company. If you combine those two together, they basically have a presence on every major country on planet Earth. So I would expect Tesla to have something similar, maybe not a gigafactory in every country, but they'll have some sort of operation. That's how I think about it. So it could just be smaller scale,
Yeah, smaller scale. Maybe they'll buy some mining facility in Canada or something at some point.
That's right. Yeah, something like that. Real quick, I want to highlight a comment from Praveen. He just highlighted, I saw this on Twitter as well. Reuters, Tesla chief executive Elon Musk will directly brief Indian Prime Minister Modi on plans to set up a manufacturing base there, a source with direct knowledge said. So this is from Reuters. Interesting development.
The key thing there is
We'll
a
see
source
what
with direct
happens.
knowledge said.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Someone's uncle.
yeah, I would say is like 50% chance this is true. So 50, that's still
Okay.
meaningful, you know, but that's about what we
Yeah.
thought. Like maybe it increases the chances in our mind from like, all right, 40% chance that something very significant happens with Modi to 50% chance. I don't know. I do think it's signal in the right direction, but it's not to, you know, take the Reuters or Wall Street, especially when the sources are unnamed. I've learned from many years of politics, do not trust any unnamed sources, you know, so it's usually, it can often be some writer trying to just get clicks, you know, you just can't trust the media with unnamed sources. It's insane. So
Crazy.
We'll
It's
see.
rarely a confirmation, if ever.
Yeah. Elon,
For
I feel
sure.
like it'll come from his mouth, you know, and then we can accept it as true.
Agreed. Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Vias. Another contribution to Emmet's IPA fund. Question: would Tesla be in a strong position to make all automakers buy its 4680 batteries after they become dependent on Tesla supercharger? How do you think about this?
Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. That'd be something like Jordan from Limiting Factors. That's another thing I've learned of many years of of investing in Tesla is like I know who to go to for the accounting question specialty, for the battery chemistry question specialty, or the manufacturing. You know, I know which niches of the Tesla expertise. Maybe I feel like the Tesla call option expertise niche or something. I guess that's what people come to me for because I get all these random DMs like, "What about these call options? What about these?" Like, I guess that's my niche. I don't, you know, but for this one, my personal opinion, which is very generalized, and I don't, you know, I've listened to a lot of Jordan's study and some others, Monroe and Associates and so forth. I think the 4680s and Tesla Supercharger are separate. I think the 4680s could be, that technology could certainly be licensed out to other manufacturers. I think Panasonic is already planning to do it too, or something. So maybe CATL is the other big one. That's the elephant in the room. Are they going to be doing 4680 production? We'll see. And then there's LG and some others. So I think 4680 could become the standard for the entire EV industry if Tesla ramps it up successfully. Tesla will have the first mover advantage by, you know, a couple of years probably, but you know, 5 years from now, it could become the standard for all, you know, EVs is my thought. What do you think, Farzad?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sort of on that same thought process. I think it's highly dependent on Tesla's ability to ramp 4680 to a certain volume that can facilitate outsourcing, and the cost. There needs to be a cost advantage as well. So it has to be both. I think for it to be a no-brainer thing that other automakers would jump on, just like the Tesla supercharger, and sort of be part of that equation, they have to build a ton of them, and they have to make it incredibly obvious for competitors to jump on their supply chain and purchase their format from a cost perspective, you know. So it has to make sense. But if Tesla's long-term, you know, self-proclaimed goal of being the leader in manufacturing, period, it becomes true, then one would think that something like this becomes a no-brainer for other companies to jump on, right? Because if you're going to have the best battery at the best cost and you're going to make the most of them and they're the most reliable, why wouldn't everyone buy them? That's how I think about that equation. So, okay, let's do a couple more here. Let me bring up a question from my really good friend, Richard/Bob/not legal advice. Question: do you think Tesla will take advantage of today's directive to Ford and GM to localize supply chain for battery production? Now, I'll go ahead and share this real quick because I actually just caught wind of it myself. This was an article from about 4 hours ago. Lawmakers to press GM, Ford CEOs over China supply chains. So do you think that this development is going to, going to benefit Tesla in any way because of this development? How are you thinking about that? What the hell is this? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, I mean, I like not legal advice on your channel. He has good perspectives a lot of times. I don't agree with everything he says, but sometimes he brings up points. I'm like, yeah, no one else is saying that. That makes sense, you know. So
I don't agree with anything he says. I'm kidding.
So, but for this one, I think Tesla has the advantage. They're producing they're sourcing and producing their own batteries, vertical integration wins, and I think the others, Ford and GM, they're going to get penalized for not vertically integrating like Tesla does, so yeah, it's going to put them at a little bit of a disadvantage compared to Tesla. Tesla's leading the way in building out batteries. Maybe they try to do that their terms too, but I feel like isn't CATL trying to build a battery factory? Panasonic's already building one in like Kansas, I think, but there's also CATL was in talks to build like a battery plant in Texas or somewhere, I can't remember. But I would see some of these Chinese suppliers coming to the U.S. more likely to set up shop here in the U.S. and build factories to build the batteries and supplies for Ford and GM. That's what I think is the most likely outcome here. What do you think, as far as that?
Nice. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I think that makes a lot of sense, especially if they have the right incentive structure for these guys to come over. I think the IRA bill is actually quite, I'm not a fan of everything I'm actually not a fan of a lot of things that this administration is doing, but I think if there's one thing that they nailed was creating an incentive for manufacturing to come back to the States. And I think that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And the more we can have of that, the better. So huge props to the Biden admin for getting that through. The IRA is a big deal. It's a huge deal for
very big
America's
deal.
long-term. Yeah.
Bringing some manufacturing back of the, EVs and this whole new energy paradigm shift to let U.S. sort of be in charge of its own destiny with it. So I think it's
for sure
huge.
100%. Let me do two more, Emmet, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
2 more questions.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's bring in Tommy here, longtime supporter of the channel. Thank you so much, Tommy. Question: when, if ever, do you think we'll reach a cliff for financing insurance on ICE cars, on gas cars? In my opinion, it would be better to borrow money for buying crack or something. How do you think about that?
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Tommy, because whenever I'm driving up the highway, you ever drive on the highway and you see all these freaking, like, you're in like car dealership city all of a sudden, and there's like all these car dealers and loads of cars on lots all along. And I'm like,
yeah,
when are they going to sell all these ICE cars? I'm thinking, like, who's going to buy? Like, there's going to be a day where there's all these ICE cars are being built up on the sidelines and they can't sell them. And at that point, that cliff is going to happen and no one's, it's going to be a disaster. So I think a lot of the dealerships could be in big, the dealerships have, it's a fascinating business model they have, and regulatory capture and lobbying and all this stuff. But at some point, the cards are going to come crashing down on them. It's a house of cards, I feel like. And I feel like the dealership model is in big trouble, unless they can pivot quickly to EVs sooner or later. But yeah, I think it's coming. This cliff is coming, whether it's 2 years from now or 5 years from now, I'm not sure, but it's coming. What do you think, Farzad?
I'm right there with you, man. I can't help but think, so we live in a part of the Austin metro area that's developing very quickly. And the one thing I've noticed is that there is people throwing up new car dealerships. And I'm like, boy, is that a terrible investment. Like that's what goes through my mind. I'm like, are you sure you want to do that? Like,
I always think, how can I short these car dealerships? I'm always thinking that. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. And it's like my wife and I will like, actually, Cindy brought this up, producer wife brought this up when we're driving around. And there was like, new Mazda dealer coming in 2024. And she's like, why the hell are they doing that? And I was like, what? It's like, why are they building a Mazda dealership here? I'm like, wow, even like, and she's not like a psycho like you and I are, like thinking about this stuff constantly, freaking obsessed with this stuff. But she's just casually like, yeah, why this doesn't seem smart. If we're gonna go electric, why are they building a dealership here? I'm like, you're 100% right. I think the thing I'm most concerned with is that the transition away from gas car is not going to be gradual. My gut's telling me that it's going to be sudden, and it's going to cause so much havoc and craziness in the market that it's going to be like analogous to 2008 when we had the financial crisis, where everything seemed okay, and then overnight it felt like everything just came down, and we're like, what the hell just happened?
I think it'll be a miniature version of that, because it's not homes, it's going to be cars. Yeah, but it's going to be like a miniature version of that, maybe. Yeah, and there's going to have to be some like bailout programs for car dealerships, probably.
Yeah, like, at some point, people are not stupid. They're going to have to, they're going to look at a gas car and they're going to say, again, my hypothesis, they're going to look at a gas car and say, why would I ever buy or lease or rent something that is not going to be worth anything in like 2-3 years time? Because, A, the government's not incentivizing it. And then B, I can buy an alternative that runs way cheaper, and it's now I can buy it kind of. I might have to get on a waiting list, but why buy a new car when I can just wait maybe a couple of years and get my EV and just run my used car to the ground? I think repair shops, third-party repair shops, are going to make a killing for the next 10 to 20 years as they keep these gas cars on the road. But a new gas car, to me, like, talk about, I don't give advice to barely anyone about investing their money, but me personally, you couldn't pay me enough money to start a new car dealership today. Impossible.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it under any circumstance. So anyway, long answer to your question, but all right, let's go ahead and do this one. I'm going to squeeze two more in, Emmet. I hope that's okay. I've just got a super chat in. Just make
I'll
sure
read
we
this
get
one
these.
and give you a break so you can line up the other one. From Bruno
It's
Smith.
okay. Go for it.
Others making steps to adopt Tesla tech. Is there a risk that every car will de facto be Tesla, and will this create a monopoly? So I'll take a first step here. I think I don't think there's a risk that every car will be a de facto Tesla. I think there will be a risk that every car will have be powered by Tesla. It'll be like powered by this. Like, I can't think of the analogy. There's another thing that says powered by, but I think a lot of EVs could be powered by Tesla, whether it's the full self-driving, powered by Tesla FSD or something like that. I think that could be a somewhat of a monopoly for Tesla. I think they'll just take like a small slight, just like Apple has their fee of 30%, which is ridiculous. Tesla might do like a 10% fee or something they think is more reasonable across the board for all FSD technology they're licensing out. So I think that's a likely scenario, higher than 50% chance in my mind. So in terms of the batteries and stuff, I think you'll have lots of Chinese suppliers still in the mix. CATL is a behemoth. I don't think people realize how big they are, but they're going to continue to be a behemoth. And Tesla will have its own batteries. They'll also buy some from CATL, but I'm not sure Tesla's battery technology will power all EVs. But I think their FSD technology has a very high chance of being licensed, outside of China. In China, I think you'll have some other tech companies creating their own FSD technology, like basically copying Tesla, but the government will allow it. And so the inside Chinese economy, it won't be, Tesla licensing, their FSD to other, but Tesla will have its own Tesla China FSD, obviously. I think that's my thought process. But in the rest of the world, the Western world, which respects copyright laws and IP laws and patent law and stuff, I think you'll have a lot of EVs using Tesla's FSD technology being licensed by Tesla. Tesla.
Yeah, I think along those lines. So like the Power by Tesla moniker, I think makes a lot of sense. I think that Tesla's supply chain will be leveraged by most people. I think that's for sure. In the same way that, Apple has a supply chain and a lot of companies tap into their supply chain for like screens and batteries and things like that. I think Tesla's going to have something very similar, and things like the 4680, maybe the chips in some way. If Dojo becomes the sort of preferred method of computing for real world AI type deal, who knows?
It could be just like powered by Tesla AI. That might be the sign.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who knows? It's going to be fascinating. Which again,
powered by Dojo, like you said.
Exactly.
Cool.
It's sort of like that name will just permeate everything. Like Tesla will be everywhere. It's like it's kind of crazy. But who knows? Who knows if that's the?
And it'll be all kinds of it'll not just be the Tesla FSD. I think it'll go beyond that to not just the Tesla Optimus robots, but there'll be other robot companies using Tesla's AI to power their robots to do things for people. It won't be just like human factor, humanoid robots that Tesla's making, but there could be other companies making tractors or other types of robotic stuff that is powered by Tesla AI.
Whatever requires compute, basically, could theoretically utilize Tesla's technology. Yeah. All right. And then we'll do the last question. And I'm going to bring up the Tesla's ticker as well, because we're reaching session highs here, Emmet, as we've been talking. So the lesson here is that you and I should talk every day, because then the stock will just go up 4.5% every time, right? Obviously. Last question from Corey. Question: when does Emmet anticipate the compact car reveal? This year or 2024? Much closer to Mexico launch? How are you thinking about that, my friend?
Yeah, I think the compact reveal, they have to be very careful not to cannibalize Model 3. So we have this kind of new refurbished Model 3 about to come out, it sounds like. So that should help generate some sustainable demand for Model 3, because that's been the weakest link for a while now, is the Model 3. So this new version Tesla, which is probably being designed to also be self-driving, I would imagine, like primarily its function or something like a robotaxi function maybe, but also optional to be used as a, self-driver car, but I would imagine they don't reveal that until 2025, when they're ready to like actually ship it, from Mexico and Austin at the same time, or wherever else they build it out of. So that's my thought, is they're not going to actually reveal it until it's like very close. I could be wrong. Maybe Elon decides to reveal it later this year because it's such a different car, such a different form factor than the Model 3. He's not worried about it cannibalizing. But if there's any chance for it to cannibalize, if it's any, the Model 3 demand, I feel like they'll just hold off. What do you think? You got muted, Farzad. You got muted here.
I muted myself when I'm talking. Yeah. My God, I'm such an expert at this. I think it's all very dependent on the type of vehicle they're going to release. I think the Highland, sort of the refresh for Model 3 that's been rumored, I think that is going to create really good separation between the Y and the compact car. It's going to sort of carve its own niche, is my estimation. It's going to be probably performance driven more than it is now, and it's going to give you something that the Y and the compact car just can't give you. I think if that is correct, then I don't think the timing of the launch is going to be as important, because or like when they show the car, because it should be differentiated enough. But the thing that keeps coming back to my mind is, this thing is going to be start around $25,000 to $30,000, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be supremely affordable compared to the rest of Tesla's lineup, and and this is going to come on the heels of all the players. I would estimate will go NACS, the Cybertruck being in the wild, FSD getting solved and operating. Like, all these things should be part of the world, call it, when this thing is potentially announced. And so how would that not generate millions upon millions of reservations, right? And so that's the thing that Tesla has to balance, is when they release this car, it's going to garner so much attention that they're going to have a very long wait time. And is that going to dictate how and when they release the product? They could do like an Apple thing for the first time ever, where they're like, hey, our compact car, it starts at $25,000. Order yours. You'll get yours in a month and a half. Mm-hmm. But I highly doubt that's the case, because manufacturing cars is very difficult.
They got the manufacturing line set up, and they got to order the Idra
supply
press or
chain.
Yeah,
it's crazy. And then as soon as you start doing that preparation and you're talking to all the suppliers and everything, there's going to be a leak somewhere. So what I think is going to happen for the first time in Tesla's history, this is my prediction, is that we're going to know about the compact car before Tesla announces the compact car, because they're going to have to tap the supply chain. They're going to have to get all that stuff ready before they announce it, and there will be leaks. So how like now with the iPhone, everybody knows what it looks like before it gets announced, because they have to ramp up the supply chain. I think that's what's going to happen with the compact car.
Yeah. Okay, it's very possible it could play out that way. Yeah. So
we'll see.
We'll see
what happens. All right, man. Thank you so much, Emmet. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We didn't have producer wife, but boy, did we make it into an awesome conversation. Any parting words for the listeners, for the viewers, before we'll let you go, sir?
No, I just would say, keep the eye on the prize. The product. You gotta, if you're a long-term Tesla investor, you got to just really dig your heels in on the product experience. So part of the fun of being a long-term investor for me has always been, testing out the product as soon as possible. So I always try to get the earliest Solar Roof version, or the Powerwall, and earliest Model S when it comes out refreshed or whatever. So that's like a lot of fun for me. It's like investor research, but I love new technology, so I get to try it out. But when I use that stuff, when I use the Tesla technology, do I feel that it's the best thing I've tried out there, and it certainly has been. So I think for any investors, it's easy to, look past that right now when Tesla stock's on a tear like it has been the last month. But just remember that when Tesla goes down 50% plus again, which it will inevitably at some point, whether it's macro market or not, there will be a major drop of some amount in Tesla again. And it'll feel very scary, as a long-term investor. But when those times happen, you just got to really dig your heels and be like, did something change with the product? Is that why it's going down? Do I feel differently about the actual product? So I think that would be the lesson I would like to get across. I think we talked about that earlier. Yeah.
Awesome, man. Thank you. And as you were saying that, Tesla hit 5% up for the day. So clearly, you know what you're talking about. Yeah. And and Bruno says, bring Emmet back often. He's a gem. Couldn't agree more. Emmet, you're always welcome back at any point. Yeah, man.
Thank you.
You're truly an awesome resource, and I really want to thank you for all the selfless work that you do with your channel. Tell people a little bit about Good Soil before we let you go, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So this fund I started, Good Soil Invest is the Twitter handle. I don't really tweet from it very often, but the business model of the fund is basically half of the fees the fund generates net of expenses goes to charity. And so I'm just trying to change the business model of the most well-off capitalist pigs there are, hedge fund managers, and so socialism is something I see creeping into the discussion more and more by the younger generation. That's worried me. So I'm like, well, what can I do? What part can I play? Maybe I can help change that perspective by making the seemingly most capitalistic people, hedge fund managers, seem, not as selfish and a little more helping society out. So maybe my hedge fund business model, if it's successful, maybe it catches on and others start doing it. And then people say, oh, look, hedge fund managers, they can actually give a lot of money to charity. They can help society too. They're not just, greedy, owning billionaire yachts or whatever, So I just feel like that's the mission I'm on. I keep more than making money from my fund is to actually succeed, to try to just be a small part in that movement to evolve capitalism so that you don't have someone like AOC or Bernie Sanders come in and change capitalism to socialism. And I think that would be the downfall. So I think you just need to evolve it. Since we're entering this, especially when we're entering this age of abundance, as Elon calls it, there's going to be a lot of cracks that need to be holed up. And I think charity is going to have to play a major role in that because you can't count on government to change quickly.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for all the work you do on behalf of the listeners and everybody who follows you. Yeah, man. And thank you again for making the time. Greatly enjoyed our conversation. Like I said, back anytime you'd like. I'd love to have you discuss whatever you'd like. And yeah, thank you to everybody in the comments. Thank you to everybody listening. Thank you to all the mods doing great work. Thank you to producer wife, even though she's not here today. I'll do her usual little clappy thing. She likes to give herself a little round of applause. So we'll do that too. And then we're going to play a little outro, and then we'll be back in the backstage Emmet here after a few seconds. And until the next time, everybody, we'll see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.